Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to follow on from my previous video about the 8 realms of chaos, this time talking about the laws of magic more broadly, mainly focusing on the Space Marine legions, but also some of the gods from other factions, and as ever, spoilers for the End and the Death and the heresy as a whole. When choosing which legions belong to what law, what I found most interesting and telling was the physical effects on the Primarchs of Light and Shadow, with their time in the warp as infants. Kurz and Korax both have black eyes, hair, and pale skin, and Ulgu-based abilities such as Korax's invisibility and Kurz dimming lights when entering rooms. Furthermore, with Korax fully embracing Ulgu in 40k. Kurz also lives on a planet of perpetual darkness, and we see the Night Lords reminiscing on the Strauman Sharks when talking about naval engagements, much like a port city like Misthaven, Comora, or Nagaroth, with similar tendencies to the latter two. Additionally for Raven Guard, they have elites referred to as Shadow Masters, and their captains as Shadow Captains. Dawn and Fulgrim are Hysh, being physically changed by the warp and their time with the Wind of Light, both having white hair and Fulgrim having white eyes in some depictions. The Law of Light for the Emperor's Children reflects how Slaanesh is formed from the death of the Eldari Empire, light magic being used by elves such as the Lumineth in AOS, who also use lanterns like the Lightbearers and Black Templars. The Imperial Fists wear yellow after our sun's soul. Additionally, the Emperor often uses light magic with the War in the Webway, where, in a sunless realm, the sun rose at last, and Euphrates Keeler and Kirill Sentiment, through their teachings to Lightbearers, are able to channel light magic with lanterns and prayers in the Siege of Terror, the Last Wall, and burn Poxwalkers. This tradition is continued in 40k, with the lanterns across the Black Templars miniatures and the Star Child, with the Emperor becoming a god of Hysh. There's also the fact that the Astronomicon is a beacon of light, and the faithful get turned into pure light magic in The End and the Death Volume 3. The Big Four, Malice and Be'lakor, are the same in 40k and AOS, but Vashtor is replaced by Hashut in Fantasy for Shimon, and the Dark King by the Great Horn Rat for Shyish. This also explains certain Primarch rivalries, such as the Lion being life with Forest, Walking, and Green Eyes, while Leman Russ is deaf as the Emperor's executioner. Primarchs of the same law are often compared to each other, such as Sanguinius and Angron for Akshi, and Korax and Kurz for Ulgu. Jagatai and Mortarion's fight pits them as perfect opposites, with Jagatai's speed of attack and Mortarion's slow advancing defense, because Nurgle and Tzeentch, or in this case Azir, are opposites on the Chaos Wheel. Then there's Magnus and Jagatai, who both got along well and are both Azir. Book 36 of the Horus Heresy follows the White Scars and is titled The Path of Heaven, Heaven referring to Azir, the Law of Heaven, and Stormseers being masters of the meteorological and weather witches, as GW themselves put it. Quote, calling on the heavens themselves to aid them, covering troops' advances with mists and fog, and summoning lightning on their enemies. The Webway's connection with the Wind of Heaven is certainly something interesting to consider, with Kegarak like Cain and Khorne being the obvious order equivalent to Tzeentch. Kegarak himself is interesting given he is the last active and surviving Eldar god pulling strings in the Webway for his final scheme, which is quite similar to the supposed last Old Ones scheming and dabbling in some forgotten corner of the galaxy. For the Blood Angels and Akshi, Sanguinius is offered by Chaos a supposed way to end the Red First by giving into something known as the Rage Fire and a demon called the Red Angel formed from the rage of the Blood Angels. This scheme by Erebus ends up failing when Apothecary Meros sacrifices himself before his Primarch can become possessed by the Red Angel. This very literally shows the connection between the Blood Angels and the Law of Fire. Cain's connection to Akshi and Khorne is quite obvious with his rage-filled murderous nature, being a living statue of molten metal and fire, and Khorne claiming him as his own, leading to a shattering between him and Slaanesh. In 40k, just like we see Korax becoming closer with Ulgu and his Primarch abilities, we see the same with the Lion as he embraces his Gyran abilities and learns to forest walk, teleporting between various forests across worlds, no doubt because of their connection to life magic similarly to the forests of Athel Loren. Nurgle is life or Gyran, with Isha being the order equivalent. She was part of a trinity of goddesses including the hag goddess Morai Heg, reflected with Nurgle's trinity of life, death, and decay, while she herself bears a striking resemblance to Nurgle as seen with her Aspect Shrine mini. For Malice's connection to Gur, we can also see this with the capital of the realm of Gur in AOS, Excelsis, who share the monochrome white scheme with Malice, and their symbol is the Spear of Malice, which is apparently a physical thing in the harbour, while the red accent ties back to Vulcan's red eyes, something we are yet to see, as the only official art we have of Malice is a monochrome pencil sketch in the black and white Sons of Malice scheme. The symbol of a salamander aligns with Gur being the law of beasts, while the salamanders are the largest of the Space Marines. Gur, of course, referred to as ravenous dissolution, evoking the self-destructive nature of chaos, and Malice's hatred towards chaos, but also seen with the self-destructive nature of orcs and salamanders' suicidal tendencies when fighting during the Great Crusade, leaving them severely depleted when reunited with Vulcan. The wildlife of Gur itself is known for the same tenacity as Vulcan and his regenerative abilities, while the Alpha Legion reflect Malice in their self-destructive nature, being so split and often fighting against Chaos and themselves, much like the Orcs and Sons of Malice towards other Chaos forces. Meanwhile, the Hydra head symbols bear some resemblance to Malice himself. And lastly, Vulcan is brutal but cunning, while Alpharius is cunning but brutal. After all, it is also a hammer. Yanid is associated with Shyish, as he is literally referred to as the Eldari god of the dead. You can also see aspects of Shyish all throughout the Imperium with their worship of the Emperor and macabre iconography. The Space Wolves, as previously mentioned, act as the Emperor's executioners, and also have the Wolfen, which are reminiscent of some of the Soul-Blight Gravelords from AOS, while the Word-Bearers had their fair share of involvement in setting things in motion for the ascension of the Dark King, and were the first legion to establish the role of chaplains, who embody the law of death in the 41st millennium with their macabre skull visages. Of course, Iron Hands and Iron Warrior's connection with Shimon, the law of metal, is obvious, Ferrus even having steel-coloured eyes, as is the Big Four and their legions, so I don't need to explain that, while the Void Dragon is the order equivalent to Vashdor, as seen in their mirrored designs. And that's a wrap on the legions. Thanks for watching again. I hope you enjoyed the video, and leave any thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, bye bye!